So we're going to be talking about communication. This is Communication Love Month, but we're also looking at the first 4 chapters of the Science of Mind textbook, which practitioner Greg Gardner read from today. I found this joke about communication. This man was fishing during duck hunting season, and this little boat, and he somehow fell off the boat. And he was kind of splashing around, and he saw one of the hunters with his gun trained on him. He says, "Don't shoot." And the hunter says, "Don't whack." And so, you know, a lot of times we worry about saying the wrong thing, like our lives could depend on it. And, you know, we worry that we'll somehow quack, and it could get us into a lot of trouble. One of the things that we've been talking about in this communication section is about this idea that when we're talking about communication, that there's no point A and point B. There's no communication station over here to the receptor over there. That when we start talking about this concept of communication, what we're really talking about is this conversation we have here about oneness. That there's no separation between us and other people, or us and something separate from us. And so we talked a lot about oneness. But what Greg read today was about duality, that there's no duality. And one of the things that we often do when we listen to other people is we listen to them, and we talked about this last week, we listen to them through our filters. We listen to people through, do I agree, do I disagree, am I threatened by that, am I protecting, sometimes you may feel like you need to defend yourself. We listen through all of these things so that what one person is communicating to us has to make it through all of these different layers of filters before the communication actually gets to us. So by the time it gets to us, it becomes more of a mirror of what we think they are saying and communicating, rather than what they are actually saying and communicating. So we did an exercise last week where we really got into the other person's world and just, took a moment to be with the other person. And we're going to do 2 exercises tonight that will really deepen this conversation about communication. When we listen to other people, if we are able to listen to them from the space of oneness and give up the concept of duality, we would have a completely different experience of the people that we're communicating with. But sometimes when we're listening, we have it like there may be something adverse to us that could hurt us, that there's a good and an evil, that there's what I agree with and what's safe, and then there's all the other stuff they said. And so then we listen to all the other stuff they said from a space of being fearful that somehow whatever they said or did is going to actually cause us harm. But in reality, when we explore the idea of oneness in our communication, what really shows up is, how do we know how to be one with someone else unless we first know that we are one with Divine Source? And so our ability to be with someone over there is entirely dependent on our ability to be with who we are now in our relationship with the divine. So if I know that Spirit is in me, and I can feel the spaces in me where Spirit resides, I can feel how it moves, I can feel how it breathes, I can feel that that Imani. My daughter's name is Imani. It's the word that means the peace that comes from having faith. But one translation of it means that space of when you're feeling inspired and you're in that holy space and you feel that faith in you. That is they would say that person has Imani. Similarly, when we know where that space of Spirit lives in us, and we just breathe into it and know that space, we know that in that connection that we are Spirit, that we are not all that God is, but we have all the elements of God in us. And so because we know that there is nothing that can harm us, that there is nothing that can actually cause us to be destroyed, because we are actually, who we really are is spirit. And we're just living in these human flesh bodies having this experience. So the idea that something could actually harm us is a misnomer. And the idea that something could harm us is something that our egos developed when we were very young. Our egos, when we were young, said, I better not do that again. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to love like that again. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to trust like that again. People are dangerous. People are out to get you. You know, I'm not safe. These things we made up about our lives when we were young become the way that we relate to the world. And it becomes the way we listen to others. It becomes, and then the way we listen to others absolutely defines our experience, not only of others, but of our overall experience. So everything that occurs to us in our jobs, in our homes, in our relationships, we listen to them through that filter that our egos created. Now that doesn't mean that this is a duality and our egos are bad or wrong, or that we're somehow flawed. We're just having a learning experience. But knowing the difference between when my ego is at play and when it's spirit speaking is a vital difference. And only we know that in ourselves by self-introspection, by knowing how it feels. If I'm feeling threatened and I'm protecting myself, is that God or is that my ego? Now, I'm not saying there's a difference between God and ego. What I'm saying is it's the place from where I'm drawing my source. And our ego, it works for us, right? My ego told me that, here's one, is black tax. Anybody heard about black tax? I'll tell you about black tax. You probably heard about black tax. Black tax is the notion that I was raised with by my mother, a very wise woman, who said, if you're going to walk into a room, a black woman, as a professional, you have to outperform, you have to get the highest grades, you have to work harder than everyone else, and you have to, you can never be wrong, you can never make a mistake, you can never be late, you have to be all that. In order to get the same treatment as everybody else that walked in the room who was not black. So I believed in black tax, right? So, there's my grades, here's my diplomas, and still I would walk into jobs not feeling like I was being treated with an equal parity. Okay. Whatever was going on with other people was going on with other people. But in this concept of science of mind, we talk about what you actually believe is what you manifest. So if I actually believe that as a black woman I have to overperform, why? Because I have a fundamental belief that life is unfair. And it's going to be unfair to me. So guess what showed up? Unfair, unfair to me. And the communication piece of that is that when I'm communicating who I am, there's a hidden message in the background. There's a hidden message in the background that's saying, am I good enough? Are you going to be mean to me? Are you going to treat me badly? And when I'm actually behind what I'm saying, there's that message, I'm going to elicit that from other people. Now, I'm not saying other people don't have problems. I'm saying from my place of being responsible, it's incumbent on me to walk in knowing who I am. And when I know who I am as a child of God, that I am blessed beyond measure, when I know that it's actually not my ego performing on the job, that it's actually spirit working through me, that it is God within me that doeth the work, when I know that I am divinely guided, that my words are the words of God, that when I'm speaking, when I'm listening, when I'm seeing, when I'm walking, when I'm doing, when I'm performing, that I'm doing this in divine flow, all of that other stuff goes away. And what I create is that the people, the situations, the circumstances that support that are looking for a divine flow, that we will be a match. And the other stuff falls away. Does that mean people are not racist? No. Does that mean that people won't do what they're going to do? No. What that means is for me, that in my communications, that I'm coming from a space of wholeness, that I'm coming from a space of knowing who God is in me. And when I communicate the flow. I communicate flow, I don't communicate black tags. And what that means for me is that I'm in a space of trust and peace, because I know that I don't work for my clients. I work for God. And when I know that there is always a place for me to be of service. Absolutely always. But the first thing to do is giving up this conversation about duality, the conversation about the ego, the conversation about I have to be protected, that I could be hurt. When we're walking in that complete divine flow, we are actually able to communicate from a different place. And we communicate and create from a place of power. In a place of power that our ego, no matter how good I am, no matter how polished I am, no matter how eloquent I am, no matter how educated I am, it cannot take the place of the power of the spirit of flow going through me as I communicate from that place, as opposed to the ego place. That doesn't mean don't be prepared. It doesn't mean don't be educated. It doesn't mean don't do whatever you do to the best of your ability. It just means that we're speaking from a different place. You know, the Course in Miracles, if anyone's read the book, The Course in Miracles, we have this ability to be in a space of atonement, which is at one, being the knowing that we're one with the divine. And when we know we're one with the divine, that we're coming from a place where there may be miscreations. People may miscreate out of error or out of ignorance, because all of us are learning. Nobody's gotten there, right? So people will create something that may be negative. They may create something that could be harmful. They could create something that may be painful to themselves and to others. But when we actually are creating from a place of spirit, it isn't an ego miscreation. It's actually a flow that is of a higher order. So when we are in this space of atonement, when we're at one, we have this ability to have miracles flow through us in an outrageous way, in ways that it honors God for it to be shown through you. It honors God for it to be shown through me. So it's not about my performance. What I'm doing on the job, what I'm doing in communication, what I'm doing in life, when it becomes a miracle, the miracle honors the divine source. And so all there is for me to do is expand my ability to be that miracle. And the way that I expand that ability to be that miracle is, one, our realization and knowing when we are in that divine source space. The second part, and this is the part that we're going to do some exercises around, is extending that atonement to your brother or sister. Extending that understanding, that absolute place of spirit, knowing that that person is walking in spirit, that that person is a spirit being, that that person is God, and expanding our ability to listen to that person from that space. The degree to which we can listen to our fellow man from that space defines our ability to have that happen for us, is dependent on my listening to you as God, a partner. What that person needs to get first is that they need to be gotten first, right? The number one thing to do is have them get that you understood what they said, without adding your commentary, without adding your opinion or your emotional content and all of that. Just, I got what you said, and I get that this is your commitment, right? So yeah, okay, so you're complaining that I left dishes in the sink. I got it. I understand that. You wish I wouldn't leave dishes in the sink, and I got your commitment to having a clean home and having this, who wants ants and call the preventive specialist or whatever. I got it, right? If you can acknowledge that without, those are your dishes in the sink, when was the last time you did it, right? You don't need to go there. You can solve it all, but just being in their world and getting them to know that you got the communication. And that exercise of oneness right there actually is a spiritual practice, because you're putting your stuff aside to be one. Now, one of the other things that's very important about this exercise that you all did is the part where you actually acknowledged their commitment. Now, we always say namaste. The God in me recognizes and honors the God in you. But sometimes, I grew up with this belief that if somebody was going to kind of compliment from me, they had to deserve it. I wasn't just going to go around and just, compliment people and da-da-da. They had to earn my respect, right? And I've learned the opposite is actually true. That when we actually acknowledge people in a very powerful place, it's actually a love conversation. It's actually a deep conversation of getting who that person is. And when we go into that meditative space in that communication, we find ourselves being able to do it in a way that has that person not just get the love coming from you, but that they get themselves in a whole new way. Sometimes when life is hard and we make mistakes and we're struggling with something, sometimes it's so important to be able to listen to yourself the way that somebody that loves you listens to you. If I can listen to myself the way that Annette listens to me, I would thrive, because the way she knows how to listen and acknowledge is divine. And if we can open our hearts to people in a communication and tell them to their face who we know they are, you'll find yourself that Spirit will channel that information through you as you do it in this divine flow. Annette is a master at this. And so I'm going to ask Annette to come up and acknowledge Carmela.
Oh, goodness.
So when you're being acknowledged, you hold the mic. Just eye contact, and don't stop her until she's done.
What am I doing? You're just listening.
Oh.
Is this on?
Yeah.
So, Carmela, I acknowledge you for your huge, huge spirit. Your amazing heart. I see you with the kids every Sunday. You can't fake that. You've got the biggest heart. You have the ability to expand continually. You're constantly searching for growth. You're constantly looking for the meaning in things, and you share that with others. The way you love your family, the way you stand for your family, the way you've been there for your family is amazing. I'm blessed to be part of your family. I'm blessed every time I'm around you. You're a powerhouse. You're a spiritual powerhouse. And I love you.
Good.
Wow. Oh, my.
You don't have to know somebody to do that. You don't. So what's going on over there, Carmela?
Oh, sorry.
What is your experience of that?
When I watched her, I felt her truth, that what she was speaking to me was truly, truly how she felt. And I see her here every Sunday, every Wednesday, and we share love, we share hugs, we share, but this was overwhelmingly and came from a place of truth, compassion for sharing of her love for me.
Great. Thank you. So you all are going to have an opportunity to do that. See, the thing is that once you get into that space where you're connected with that other person, you look into their eyes and Spirit starts talking through you. And you just know what it is you need to say. And you know what it is they will hear. And this is something that if you practice it regularly in your life, it will change your life. It will change your relationships. Now, sometimes people can't be with being acknowledged. They'll look aside, they'll fidget, they'll contradict you, they'll stop you, blah, blah, blah. So if you're the person being acknowledged, your mission is to accept it. Don't say, oh no, that's not true, or, maybe that person doesn't know me, or that, whatever you got going on, let it lie. Let your mind empty, and let that person tell you the God they see in you.